You're about to hear the recording of a man living in the afterlife. He says he was surprised to meet a woman there who said she knew him well, but he didn't know her. As he talked with her, he was delighted to learn she was a sister he didn't know he had because she had died in her infancy before he was born. Hello, I'm Dr. R. Craig Hogan, president of the Afterlife Research and Education Institute and Seek Reality Online. You're about to hear the recording of the voice of Alfred Pritchett. Pritchett was killed in World War I on August 16, 1917. The recording was made on November 4th, 1960, 43 years after his body had died. Pritchett spoke in a session with Leslie Flint. Flint was a direct voice medium who sat in the dark and voices came from the afterlife. His work was tested by a great variety of researchers. All found that the recordings were not coming from Flint or from any other source in the room. They came from the afterlife. Today we have thousands of these recordings. This excerpt from Pritchett's recorded conversation describes what Pritchett was seeing when he was being shown around the afterlife by a guide he calls this friend.
Anyway, eventually, time came when this friend who brought me here came over to me again. He says, "I want to show you something." So I says, "Oh, all right, mate." So I went with him and we went outside and he took me down another street. Little houses there, very attractive they was, with little balconies and flowers and all beautiful flowers. I've never seen such flowers. And he took me down the end of this road. We came out to a big square, like a sort of street square of a street. And there was a big fountain playing in the middle. And I could hear music. Oh, it was wonderful music. It was beautiful music. And I thought this is a little nice. It reminded me of the old days when I used to sit in the park and listen to the band. But this band was something out of, well, it wasn't out of the world. It was. It was magnificent, playing away there. Beautiful music. I didn't know what it was, but it's marvellous music. And I saw all these instrumentalists sitting there. And they looked real marvellous. They did. The funny thing is they haven't got uniforms on there. They got this sort of robe business on. I thought, well, that looks very nice. But I might look a bit odd in one of them outfits. But anyway, I thought everything about that now. And I thought, well, what am I wearing now? And I looked and I was wearing a suit again. I thought, oh, yes, that's right. And everything was going on all the same time in my mind. I was proper sort of bewildered. Anyway, we sat down on a little bench and under a beautiful tree, beautiful blossom on it, and I was listening to this music, and I was sort of being really carried away. And my friend said to me, he said, "We often come and sit here and listen to music. It's very pleasant, isn't it?" I said, "It's very nice." He says, "You find it very restful." He says, "You just sit there. I'll leave you there for a little while. I'll come back for you." So I thought, all right. So I just sat there and listened to this lovely music. And I really enjoyed that. And anyway, I sat there with my eyes closed, sort of listening to this very nice music. And then all of a sudden, I had a sort of feeling that there was someone sitting next to me. And I opened my eyes and I looked, and there was a very beautiful lady. She was really beautiful, beautiful blonde hair. She had fair, very beautiful. She looked about 19 or 20, and I was really sort of taken back when she says, well, she called me by name, that's right. And I thought, well, that's funny, she knows my name, I don't know her. So she said, "Are you finding it all very nice here?" I said, "Very nice, thank you, miss." So she says, "You don't have to call me miss." She says, "Don't you know me?" So I said, "No, I don't know you." She says, "My name is Lily." So I said, "Lily? I don't know no Lily. Sorry," I says, "I don't want to appear rude, but I don't know you." She says, "You don't know me." And yet she says, "That's not surprising in a way." She said, "But I'm your sister. I died when I was an infant." Cool, love. I says, "I remember my mother said talking about a little girl that died when she was only a few days old or something, if I remember right." I says, but you can't be since you're grown up. So she says, that's fine. She says, I'm your sister. I died when I was an infant. And I've grown up over here. So I says, well, beats me. I says, I'm very pleased to know you, and I feel quite happy knowing you, but it's still very puzzling to me that you should be my sister, and I never knew her. I mean, so she says, well, don't let that worry you. She says, but I'm going to look after you now you're here, and she says, you come with me, and I'm going to take you home. I says, home? She says, yes, home. So I says, oh. Anyway, I went with her, and she took me out of the square, down a very broad avenue, lined with trees, and we branched off, and we went down a slope, and it seems as if we were going outside the town altogether. And we went out into the countryside, down a beautiful country road, and I could see in the distance some small houses dotted about here and there. Gradually we arrived at a small cottage place. I don't know how to describe it. It was the nearest thing I'd ever seen, by the way, to, well, cottages and that I'd seen at home in England. She eventually stopped at a small place in this own little garden with a little gate and a little porch, the door, and plenty of lovely flowers again, I noticed. And we went in, and went into this little place, and off this little passageway. On the left, remember, was this little room, all very cozy and comfortable, nice chairs, and I noticed there was no fireplace. I thought, well, it's odd. So I said, oh, I see you don't have fireplaces here then. So she said, no, we need fireplaces because it's always warm and always pleasant. So I said, that's nice, isn't it? Don't get no rain then. So she says, no, we don't have any rain. But she says, we have dew sometimes, strange as it may seem. So I said, well, oh, that must be nice. So she said, yes, it is. So anyway, we sat there talking. She started talking about my mother and my father and brother that I had still on earth. And she said she often went to see them and had been going to see them and me when I was on earth from infancy. And that she had been with me all through the war years. And she couldn't, she wasn't with me when I actually died. She said, but she got everything all ready for me, that she knew I'd be coming and that I'd be brought. And anyway, here I was, and I was going to live with her. She's going to look after me. I thought, this is nice. And I thought, well, I don't know, it's all so strange. Anyway, I settled in. I stayed with my sister.
We have thousands of these recordings of people living in the afterlife speaking through the mediumship of Leslie Flint. We also have many other recordings from other mediums and recordings researchers are making of afterlife voices using standard audio recorders. You can listen to more of these recordings at the link in the description below. All demonstrate the fact that you will come to the end of this life, but you will never die.